Sometimes being the fastest man alive still isn't enough. Ever since his first comic book appearance in Showcase issue 4, the Flash has faced many powerful and bizarre enemies. And with others taking on the mantle of the Flash like Jay Garrick, Bart Allen, Wally West, there's certainly no shortage of bad guys that want to take the Flash down. Guys, welcome back to Top 10 Nerd. Here to count down some of those powerful foes for you, I'm Taylor McWatters, and here are the top 10 strongest villains of the Flash. Let's dive in. Kicking off the list at number 10, we have HEATWAVE. This Flash villain made his first debut back in the Flash issue 140. He's standing on the cover with another popular villain, which of course I'll mention later on in this list. But HEATWAVE, aka Mick Rory, was one of those kids who was obsessed with fire. We always had that one kid who was playing with a lighter. Just trouble. Stay away from those kids, always. Absolutely trouble. He was a pyromaniac, and his entire history with schools and his family and everybody that's close to him, it's so dark. He burns down everything. He is a maniac. He got a job as a fire eater in a circus, but of course this didn't last long because he set the circus on fire. That's just how extreme he is when it comes to these elements. In his first issue, his sights aren't even set on the Flash. He's actually battling Captain Cold, and the Flash is like, well, this both looks terrible, so I gotta stop both of these maniacs, I guess. He saw the rogues in action, and then he decided to suit up himself and join the bad guys officially. So he suited up and carried a handy flamethrower gun and took on the nickname HEATWAVE, appropriately so. He appears in the CW series The Flash, played by Dominic Purcell, and he didn't last too long in the Justice League Flashpoint Paradox animated film as well. But he's one of the rogues that attacked the Flash at the start of the movie, so he's pretty important, so I figured we'd start the list off with him. And before we continue on with this list of Flash supervillains, guys, if you want to go ahead and give this video a thumbs up, it does wonders for our channel, it helps us out so much. You guys are the best, thank you so much. Now let's get right back to the list. Number 9, Captain Cold. Another character alongside HEATWAVE in the Flash series actually ended up changing to the good side in CW's Legends of Tomorrow. But in the comics, he was just as much of a nuisance as HEATWAVE. Meet Leonard Snart, which is an amazing name, first of all. He made his debut in Showcase issue 8. So Leonard enjoyed the company of his grandfather, who ran an ice cream truck, but after his grandfather passed away, sadly, Leonard had to spend his days entirely with his father, who was in no means a good parent at all. So next he studied the energy emissions of his cyclotron and figured it could work against the Flash. So he designed a weapon that could freeze people using the moisture in the air. Now it sounds fatal, but he only takes his villainy ways to a certain point. He has the same rule as Batman, which means no, you know what I'm saying? So he's not the worst of the worst. I mean, he uses a cold gun to attack the Flash, and he's the leader of the rogues, so he's still pretty bad, but as far as villains go, he's not too crazy. But still, Captain Cold can also be seen in The Flash and Legends of Tomorrow, played by Wentworth Miller, so he's pretty relevant. Number 8, Mirror Master. The other guy standing alongside HEATWAVE was Mirror Master. Now, he made his first debut back in The Flash issue 105. Meet Samuel Scudder. He was a burglar, of course, who liked to use mirrors as a weapon. So already this guy sounds like a villain in the making, but it gets better. It gets so much better. So thankfully, due to some forensic science, he was put behind bars, but things just amplified in there for the worst. For some reason, they had this guy working shifts at the mirror factory in the prison, because you know how those are a thing. So when he goes to throw out a mirror, he realizes that this mirror showed him the foreman's face instead of his, which is pretty odd. Now this mirror would show an image for minutes longer, so he figured he would study the specific mirror and use it as a way to create more crazy mirrors with more crazy effects. Soon after, he developed a costume, deemed himself the Mirror Master, using mirrors to create duplicates of other people to commit these crimes. And then there was a second Mirror Master. There were 2. I mean, maybe there were probably 100 with all these damn mirrors. But we have Evan McCullough. He made his trippy debut in Animal Man issue 8. He began his career already an assassin, and then add a fancy mirror gun to the mix, and we have a guy that can travel through mirrors in the mirrored dimension. So both of these guys, different versions, but both equally as wacky and pretty terrifying. Imagine a guy coming out of your mirror like, give me all your money. I'd faint. I'd definitely faint. The CW used Mirror Master Sam Scudder, who in the show was actually a rival to Leonard Snart. And they also used another Mirror Master as well, but this time it was Eva McCullough, and her alias was Mirror Monarch. All the mirrors, all the people. Number 7, Dr. Alchemy. Albert Desmond made his comic book debut in Showcase issue 13. Another villain that gets locked up by the Flash, and then they really start to get creative. So Albert found the Philosopher's Stone. So now he was a criminal who had the ability to change elements from one to another. So of course he used the stone to escape prison, and since it's comic books we're talking about here, he made a cool name for himself. Maybe one of the coolest in my opinion, Dr. Alchemy. But he has another side of him, literally. So he came out, he got good, and then he quit his life of crime that was unfolding, so he hid the stone, tucked it away, he didn't want any part of that anymore. He tried to move on, okay. Tried is the key word here. See, this stone can completely change elements, and also it can completely change people, sometimes for the worse. A new Dr. Alchemy popped up, and it was Albert's evil twin, which was a construct that the stone made itself. So they both shared a psychic link. How trippy is that? So he too joined the Rogues once he went back to his villain days. Number 6, Gorilla Grodd. In the Justice League, Barry Allen makes a reference to one of his skills being that of Gorilla Sign Language. And although we never saw him in the Snyder Cut or anything like that, Gorilla Grodd is one of Barry Allen's mightiest foes. Just by looking at him, you could probably guess that. He made his first appearance in The Flash issue 106 back in 1959. And the first time we see him, it's pretty obvious it's not your average gorilla. He's blasting thought waves at the Flash. Thought waves. So what's going on here? Why is a gorilla blasting thought waves? He's a gorilla who got phenomenal abilities after being exposed to a meteor that landed near his tribe. Now, he's a super strong gorilla that can control the minds of others, being animals or people. In the CW, this version of the character is a little bit different. He's just the smart gorilla that was experimented on by Star Labs, and they intended to use him as a weapon for the government, but obviously Grodd wasn't on board and busted out of there. Number 5, Abracadabra. Citizen Abra was a stage magician in the 64th century. Now, his stage name, of course, was very fitting to the role, Abracadabra. He was a magician in this time where science was so advanced that magic shows just weren't a thing anymore. You couldn't really fool somebody. They're like, hey, we all know technology and all these tricks. This isn't new. We figured this out. It's like if I were to pull an iPhone out in 1990 and be like, check out Angry Birds. It's like, cool, but we're gonna get that later. There was no tricking anybody with magic. They were almost too smart, some would say. Nobody wanted to go and pay and see old tricks. So he gained all this intelligence from the future and the new sciences that it had to offer, and then the dude went back to our time after stealing a time machine and became this advanced criminal magician. And in our era, the dude can really put on a show. Like, Chris Angel is basically this guy, no? Like, we're so close to a supervillain. He's basically a supervillain without powers. Yet. Number 4, Godspeed. August Hart, aka Godspeed, made his debut not too long ago in The Flash Rebirth Volume 2, Issue 1. Now, with a name like Godspeed, one can assume the powers in which they'll probably contain. He is truly amazing. He can separate speedsters from the Speed Force. Now, August Hart was also a detective, a former partner of Barry Allen's, actually. And then along comes a force storm in Central City, and all of a sudden you have these godlike powers. Pretty ideal powers for a hero and also a villain? Not cool. Okay, why the villain move though? How did he become a villain? Well, when August's brother was taken out by a criminal, he was released due to insubstantial evidence. So August decided to confront the Black Hole organization after they'd stolen property from Star Labs, and then he sees their symbol, the same one that was at his brother's crime scene. I mean, it's great that you're teaming up with the good guys, but if you're also becoming a villain at the same time and handling things your way, kind of defeats the purpose. I don't know. Come on, man. Number 3, SAVITAR. He's the primary villain in Season 3 of CW's The Flash. SAVITAR is a future alternate version of Barry Allen, and in the comics, he made his first debut in The Flash Volume 2, Issue 108. He was a Cold War pilot for a third world nation, and his life was forever changed when he was testing a supersonic fighter jet. Because while he was flying at these tremendous speeds, his jet was hit by lightning, and he went down. And then he discovered just like that he had super speed, and then he took on the Hindu term for God of Motion, which translates to, you guessed it, SAVITAR. What makes him stand out against other speedsters is his Speed Force aura. So while he's whizzing past enemies, he's surrounded by this friction cushion, which makes for some pretty smooth sailing. Electrokinesis also helps. Yeah, super speed plus lightning fists equals one hell of a night. Number 2, Zoom. Hunter Zolomon is the second character to take on the Reverse Flash mantle. Now, it all began when he was injured in an attack from one of those villains I mentioned earlier, Gorilla Grodd. He was left in quite bad conditions. I mean, obviously, he was just attacked by Gorilla Grodd, the villain gorilla. Like, I'm surprised he lived at all. He was paralyzed from the waist down, and he asked Wally West if he could use his cosmic treadmill and maybe, go back in time and prevent that horrible, life-altering event to take place. Just an idea. But it's not that easy when it comes to speed and time and the Speed Force, so Wally West sadly declined this offer. You can't risk the time stream, it's just not worth it in the grand scheme of things. But Hunter wasn't really asking now, was he? He broke into the museum and tried to use the treadmill, but this resulted in an explosion that shifted Hunter's speed trial. So now he has this ability where he can alter his own time frame, gaining that super speed goodness. So Zoom believed that Wally West declined to help him out because he never experienced loss. So Hunter took it upon himself to go and take out Linda Park, Wally's wife. Not good. So now we have a tragedy, but fear not, because our Barry Allen helped change the tides of time when he prevented her untimely departure. And in the Flash issue 200, Wally West uses his powers to freeze him and makes him repeat the worst day of his life over and over and over and over again. Now this is why I want to be a speedster, this ability right here. I would love to just make everybody chill out in like their favorite memory, especially this tender time in the world right now. Or if you're mean, I'll make you chill out in like an embarrassing memory, you know, just for a bit, just to kind of teach you a little lesson. And finally, number 1, we have the Reverse Flash, Eobard Thawne. He made his debut in the Flash issue 139, titled The Black Flash. He was the OG Reverse Flash. He was born in 2451 when his parents genetically engineered him to be super smart and pretty handsome. But he lacked the social skills to make his parents truly proud, so they decided that another son would maybe be fitting. A new best friend, great idea, sure. I grew up with siblings, I can back this, let's do it. That son's name was Robert, and he spent so much time trying to keep an eye on young Robert and make his parents proud that down the road his application to study the Speed Force at the Flash Museum was rejected. So he studied it illegally. He was too busy playing babysitter, so he's like, okay, I'll get there eventually, I'll just do it illegally. But he was caught by his brother, who was now an officer in the Science Police. How ironic. The Speedster is interesting, a little bit confusing, but definitely interesting. So a future version of Thawne traveled through time, prevented his brother from being born, and then he was able to study and was in turn this time around admitted to the Flash Museum. And then when Professor Drake was on the verge of proving the existence of the Speed Force, now at this point Thawne has trained his entire life for this moment, so he wanted to collab, but Drake said no. So a future version traveled and eliminated Professor Drake from the equation, and then next time around, no Drake, no problem. Now Thawne is the professor at the Flash Museum and was nicknamed Professor Zoom. This was the first Zoom that I mentioned earlier. Reverse Flash is responsible for the deaths of Barry Allen's mother and his wife Iris West. He just rips timelines and the Flash's life apart. He's kind of the worst. Well guys, there you have it. Which of these villains are your favorite, and are you happy with how they've been portrayed in live action so far? Drop us your thoughts and concerns in the comment section down below. As always, I've been your host Taylor McWatters. Thanks for watching Top 10 Nerd, and we'll catch you next time. Peace.